Hello dear group members, I am Peter Pett and we have a new drawing for correction today, and the drawing was made by Julia Rishkuca, and she used to draw from her imagination, and she uploaded this really nice animal and I really love it. It's a really nice image and a really nice character. I had written a command for this image, and I have spoken about edges and about the light direction and also about details. So we see that we have a nice details in front of the eyes and some details on the fur in some places, like on the top of the head, like here, alright. And we see this is a nice detail also, and also the eyes are really nice detailed. Also this is nice, right? And first thing I mentioned was that I would like to see a little bit more details, and also the direction of the light, which means it seems to me that this part of the picture shows that the light is coming from this direction and hits here, and this is a shadow, alright. But I don't see the same thing on this part, on the upper part of the head, since here we have another light source, like, alright. I wrote also about the eyes. It seems that these light forms aren't the same, and also the light from here, as you can see, it's not the same direction. It shows that this eye is from this direction and this eye from this direction. And I want to do just a pretty quick demo of an eyeball. So if we have an eye, alright, an iris like this, alright, and we have the middle like this, and let's say we have the light source from this part, okay, from this direction, then this part of the iris will be lighter, alright, okay. It will have wait a minute, sorry, not there, since it's transparent a little bit, the light will be here in the opposite side, right, and the literal light source will be on that part from which the light comes. So if we have a light source for this eye, which it seems that the light shows that we have a light from front, which means that it would the light source would come like this, right, from front, because of this light. But we should have that light, which is somewhere here, yes, and in this part we should have something a little bit opened as a color value. Yes, and in this manner we would have the light source coming from upper side, like drawing it like with the 3D arrow. It would come like here, it will be hitting here, and it will be lighter here, and it will be, sorry about that, it will be in shadow in this part. Alright, okay, so that's one thing I want to mention, that the light point, it's not in the right place. Alright, that's the first thing I want to mention. I will delete this. Alright, I will leave the eye demonstration here on the side. I will make another layer. Alright, and since here it's visible, like here it's really visible where we have the light source. The light source is coming from this part, okay, and it's hitting here. This is the main light, this is a shadow area. Alright, so I will guide myself after this kind of light direction, since I need a light direction, and I will draw my light direction here, so I don't forget about the light direction. Alright, like that. Okay, which means that we will have the eye's light different. We will have some other shadows, like here, this part. We will have some shadows here and light here. We will have light here. Alright, the nose, I don't know if you want to make it totally white, but since we have the light direction from this part, we would need to have a little shadow on the nose. Even if it's white, the nose in shadow area has a little bit gray. Alright, if we have this direction of the light, that means that this part of the nose has a little bit more shadow. Alright, let's make it a little bit more subtle, like that. Alright, because this part is hit by the light. Right, this part of the face would need to have a little bit more light, shadow, because of the light. Alright, and we'll have a little bit light on the cheek. Alright, okay, so talking about edges, and I will show you a trick here, and I will use a black color, black value, and this is my brush. Alright, it's pretty hard brush, and it looks like this. Right, A lot of time people are using this kind of brush. This is a preset which gives Photoshop and has a nice unsharp edge, and that sharp edge you can make it harder. Alright, if you are going to the hardness panel, as you can see here, you can put it like 100% and it will have a nice hard edge, and you can put it to 0 and you will have a nice soft edge. Alright, just the problem is that this brush doesn't have a texture. Alright, so I will show you something which is interesting. Most of the time people start to search for different brushes so that they can have the same effect but with nice soft edge. Alright, this is the same effect like this one, but it has a small amount of texture, but has the same, almost the same hardness of the edge. Alright, the thing is that you can use any kind of brush, and one of my favorite brushes are this brush, and it has a pretty nice pretty hard edge, but has a great amount of texture. Alright, and this is a preset what I use, and the nice thing is that you can work both hard and both soft edge. And the thing what you need to do is just one: you go to the flow and you dim down the flow, alright, like 10%, and you will get a soft edge brush. From almost any brush you will get a soft edge brush. As you can see, it's the same brush, but it's a soft edge brush, and it's only because just the flow. Alright, if you adjust the flow, your brush starts to become softer like that, and you can go till 9 or 10, 15%, and your brush will become soft. Alright, any brush, any texture brush you can use with soft edge, just adjusting flow. Alright, so this is a great thing about flow. Yes, opacity is adjusts the opacity of the color. Alright, how much amount of color goes down. But the flow, with the flow you can adjust the hardness of the brush. Alright, as you can see, it's the same brush but different flow settings will give your brush a nice. Alright, another great thing which you can do is try to use the same brush on one of your drawings or paintings, not switching from brush to brush. You don't need that many brushes. You just need 1 or 2 brushes for a painting, but adjusting the flow and adjusting the opacity, you can get different effects of the same brush. Alright, and we are going back to the thing about edges, and if we are let's use the flow like 9%, and let's draw something like a cube. Alright, I will just draw one part of the cube, like two faces of the cube. Alright, the other faces doesn't matter now. Alright, and we have the light source from this part, let's say, and that means that this part will be in shadow. Alright, and we will have a nice edge here. Alright, let's see. Okay, and I will draw with red color, so you can see it. That's let's put the flow back. Alright, and that's a hard edge. Alright, okay, here you see we have a hard edge. Alright, which means that the difference between white and this shadow value, it's pretty instant. Alright, I will draw another one here, so I will draw another cube. Yes, alright, but now I will do a softer edge, which means that we will have our contour of the cube a little bit softer, which means that this line here, it's only imaginary. Alright, and if we are starting to make the light and shadow with the same direction of light which we did before, it means that we will have a softer edge, which means that the transition between light and shadow will be really soft. Alright, and as you can see here, I will draw with red like before. I will tone up my flow, and as you can see, we have a softer edge. Alright, let's draw once more. Sorry about that. Alright, like that. Okay, which means that the transition from this value to this value isn't that abrupt like here. Alright, the grays are different. We have different values of gray because there is a nice soft edge. Alright, the same edge you can find everywhere in your drawing. So the same thing will appear in your drawing every part. So let's say let's make another layer, and let's watch the eye. It's pretty nice drawn, and you can see that we have nice curvature, and then we have his eyelid, and we have a nice rounder shape, which is a rounder edge, right? And then we have a transition which goes over, right? the same thing happens all over your drawing. So if you are working on the fur, you need to be careful with the edge, right? Some edges will be harder, right? Some edges will be less harder, like that, right? And that means that you are working on your details, right? You can put on harder edge here, right? And we can work with a softer edge near, right? Okay, you see it's a difference between them. Okay, it's a matter of edges, how hard your edges are. Right? Okay, this part of the head, if we have this light direction, this part of the head would need to have a little bit more shadow. Right? The same it's here. We need his beard, a little bit more shadow in the beard. And as you can see, I do it with a low flow, so my brush is smooth. Okay. Alright, and I wrote also about that you can make more details in this part of the face. This part of the face, so your eyes will see a little bit more details, and you can leave these parts like this. It's pretty nice, and it doesn't have too much details, so it's a great thing that you can lose your eye in the background outside of the model, right? But you would need a little bit more detail on the face, right? So maybe a little bit more work on the fur, which is on his nose. Alright, also some nice details on the eyes and the eyebrow. Details, which means that you can use a little bit more details, like sharper details, so you need to be careful with the flow of the brush, right? Like that, you see, we start to have a little amount of detail there. Alright, one thing you can do, if you are selecting the flow, you can manage your flow just by clicking on your numbers. If you click 10, you will have 10 flow. If you click on 6, you have 60. And if you are clicking on 9, you have 90. And if you are clicking on 0, you will have 100 flow. Alright, and this is pretty good to use when you are drawing details. You just push the button and you will get instantly a nice soft brush. Alright, and when you need to cover something, you just push 0 or 90 and you get the same hardness brush. Alright, and as you can see, we start to have a little bit more detail on his eyes and near his eyes. Also, I want to mention that one of his eyes is smaller than the other one and the shape is different. This eye is the one I like very much. The shape is nice. Also, I want to mention that even if the white of the eye is white, it needs to have a nice shadow beneath, so you can use the your blue color to just make a small amount of shadow, and here you can use also the flow, the reduced flow. Alright, and we talked about the light source, which will be like this. Alright, we have the middle of the eye, which is black. Alright, we put a nice light in his iris, and we put the shadow a little bit more intense, like that. It's not good. Okay, and we put the light and we put 100 flow and we put the light there. Alright, and we are correcting the iris so it will be much rounder. Right, it's a round shape. Alright, If you can't do it rounder, then you can select the elliptical marquee tool, and when you drag out, you push the shift key, you reduce the circle and you put it there on the iris, as you can see. Alright, you take that color, that blue color, and you make the iris perfect. Alright, like that. Okay, and we are putting some more shadow beneath the something more intense or darker. Alright, like that. Alright, okay, and using the reduced flow, we can manage to make a nice transition there. Right, going back with the flow, if I push the 0 and trying to make a nice corner, deeper corner. Alright, and pushing again the 2, I will get a small like that. Alright, and we are starting to have a nice shape, spherical shape. Alright, we are going back to the 100 flow by pushing 0, and we are giving a little bit more refinement to the eye, giving a little bit more shadow on the upper part. Alright, and going back to put the highlight. Alright, okay, and if we are wanting to make it a little bit lighter, you can use a lighter color. So it will be really nice. Alright, and we have a nice spherical shape. And the same thing we need to do on the other part of the white, because the light comes from this part. So if the light comes from this part, right, here we have shadow, here we have shadow, but since the form goes like this, here we will have also shadow. Right, just going back a little bit and starting to develop that part of the eye, of the shadow. Right, and now going to with a little bit bigger brush and a reduced flow, I will start to make the. Alright, so I did first time I did I defined the edge, yes, and then I added the shadow. Right, and the shadow was added with a small flow. Right? Okay, so we have the same thing here, something darker, not too dark. Okay, and we can put some light in this part. Right. Okay, and also we need to think about this shape. Let's put 100 flow about this shape, because now it looks flat, and usually it's not flat. Usually it has a nice shape, curved shape, and that we can make it if we are going to go with a little bit shadow like this. Alright, I do it since I make a nice edge here, I do it with 100 flow. Alright, but since I want to lose that shadow, I need to go with a smaller flow, so I will change to 10, and I start to develop it. Alright, and as you can see, it starts to have a nice depth, that shape. Alright, as you can see, we have all the time a little bit more shadow in the corners of the eye. Yes, so this part it's going inside, right, and this part is going outside. Alright, and as you can see, if I turn up and down the layer, you will see that we have a little bit more definement for the iris, also for the eyebrow, and also we start to have a little bit more detail, right, having a little bit more edge. Okay, alright, and we will have some shadow beneath here. Alright, because the light doesn't hit there. Alright, and I put a little bit more light on the corner here. Right, and we can put a little bit more light on this part. Since we have the light from this part, we can put a little bit more light there, and also we can go a little bit more like that. Alright, and we can go on to detail. Alright, we can start to detail the fur on his eyebrow. Alright, I have a low flow, as you can see, so my brush doesn't make hard edges, and I just start to draw some hair, and that hair it's pretty soft. Right, now I will use flow 40, which means that I have pushed the 4 button, the number 4. Alright, And as you can see, we start to have some details there too. Alright, and now I will work with the white. It's not totally white, but it's something more to white, and I will push the button number 2, and I reduce my flow to 20%, right? And I start to detail some fur. Alright, I am having a little bit care about how these furs are going, the direction of the fur. And as you can see, we have the color beneath. We are just going to work with the fur, and we can start going another way like that. Alright, I will reduce the flow to 10. Alright, and as you can see, we have a nice fur. We start to have a nice fur there. Alright, and we will start to work inside a little bit. We need a lighter value, so we will go with this. It's not visible. Let's put flow 20. Let's put 50. It starts to show. Let's put 70. Alright, it's not visible enough, which means I will make it more lighter, and with the same 70% flow I start to make some fur there, which is not too hard visible, but it has a nice touch. But as you can see, when I put the fur, I have the big shape and the big form and the light and the shadow resolved beneath. Right? I don't start to make the fur before I make all the lights and shadows correctly. So that's the priority, to have your shapes and forms resolved before you start detailing. Alright, and as you can see, we start to have a nice fur there. And if you are doing a zoom, you will see that we have a nice direction for that fur. Alright. Okay. And from here we will start to go outside. Alright, we are going with the fur like this. Let's put another color. Alright, we are going with the fur like this, and we are going outside. Alright, and from here the fur starts to go inside like this. Alright, and from here it goes to that form. Alright, okay, I will go back a little bit, and let's put the flow back, and let's start to detail here a little bit. Let's make it 50 so it's much more visible. The thing is that you don't need to make it fast. which is important is to take your time and have a nice work with time, not to go too hard and too rapidly. Alright. Being careful with the edge, alright, and going with a nice flow. So all the time be careful with the flow. Alright. I think this will be it. So thank you for posting this beautiful work, and hope you enjoyed watching the correction, and hope to see your works again soon. If you have any other questions, please let me know. And I wish you a pretty nice weekend. So this is it. Right? Goodbye.